Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I am Harry, and today we have another episode of Monday Metagaming. But before we go any further, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button here, somewhere around here on the lower right corner of the screen. Just click on it. Click on it so you could be free to enjoy the rest of this video. So, Monday Metagaming. Here we talk about some of the latest board game news in the industry, and it's in particular those that catch my eye and my attention and my opinion as to those news items. We also share some channel updates and announcements, as well as some recent plays. So, without any further ado, let's get straight to the news. So this week, there was really only one news item that caught my attention. I mean, obviously, due to the circumstances and the crisis in which we're living in right now, you know, the board game geek news is really slow, and lots of the stuff is like rehashed, you know, material, and some stuff about print and play games and things like that. But one interesting news is that GMT is going to be reprinting a new edition of Falling Sky, the Gallic Revolt Against Caesar, which is part of their Coin series of war games. And first of all, if you've seen my channel before, I've mentioned that I am a historian of sorts. I love history, in particular antiquity. So if you take me back to things like, you know, BCE times or BC times, Roman Empire times, Greek, and even further back, these things interest me and fascinate me. So because of that, I've always had a curiosity for these heavier war games. I don't own any. The only war games I really own are the Command and Color series games, which I enjoy for their simplicity, their streamlined mechanisms, and of course, their reference to historical events. These heavier games tend to simulate more historically accurate events, but at the same time, they involve complexity of rules, long gameplay, and so on and so forth. But I've always been interested and curious because of the subject matter. And this has piqued my interest, and I am curious into perusing and investigating more, researching more as to what heavier war games I might experiment with, right? And add to my collection. So we'll see what happens as far as that is concerned. So again, that's the only news item for this week. Sorry that we're short, but we do have some channel updates and announcements. First of all, I'd like to say that this week we had 4 new subscribers. Unfortunately, we also lost 2 new subscribers, which I'm hoping were not one of those 4, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't. You know, eventually people realize, especially with a young channel, that this is not exactly what they're interested in, and they move on, and they're totally entitled to. However, that 4 minus 2 nets us an additional 2 subscribers to the channel, bringing our grand total to 89 subscribers as we continue to count down to 100 subscribers. If you are not one of those 89, what are you waiting for? Click on that button right here on the lower right-hand corner. I promise you this channel will not let you down. In the long run, we are a marathon. In the long run, we are committed to the satisfaction of our viewers and subscribers. So we're chugging along until we hit that 100 mark, and then we will celebrate together. I have some interesting and big things planned for when we do get to 100 subscribers. So help us get there. Also, we have over 5,600 views. That is a lot of views for a channel that is 3 months old. Some announcements of videos that you could expect for this week. Tomorrow, I will be posting my top 10 small box games. And I think that this is a very important, practical, and relevant top 10 list. As practical and helpful as I probably top 10 lists I've done so far in the short history of my channel. You know, not necessarily short games. A lot of these games tend to be short, but they're not necessarily short. But in particular, games that come in small packages, which is a very helpful thing. You could travel with them. You could take them to a restaurant. You can take them to a game night where you don't want to burden yourself with carrying lots of heavy games, right? Especially if you don't get to some of them. So Top 10 small box games coming tomorrow right at you. So stay tuned for that. And also this Thursday, I will be reviewing one of my favorite underrated games, in my opinion, which is Taj Mahal by Reiner Knizia. So if you have not played Taj Mahal, just catch that review and you'll learn more about the game. And that's it for the channel announcements. Now we will move on to my plays. And this week was a little bit of a lighter week compared to some of the other weeks, but really, seriously, considering the circumstances, it was a pretty good week. 10 plays this week. I didn't get any solo gaming this week. I always try to get a couple solo games this week for whatever reason, you know, the parenting responsibilities, you know, with the kids being home, you know, due to the COVID-19 situation. Obviously, that takes up a lot of time. Trying to work with the channel and trying to get plays with other people. All that takes into consideration. Also, I got to be honest, I haven't been feeling too good this week. This week, I've had lots of headaches, struggled with lots of headaches this past week. I remember feeling very lethargic on Monday and not getting anything done, you know, just basically surviving. And then some of the other days I felt a little bit better and was able to do things for the channel, get some games played, but not as much as I would like to. So still managed to play tons of games with my son Nick, which I have not added. We've been playing Pop the Pig lately. Oh, I don't even want to talk about that. All right, so let's move on to the games that I played with my wife Lily. So with my wife Lily, we played 8 out of my 10 plays this week were with my wife Lily. And mind you, that's considering the fact that there was one day that she was feeling very, very bad this week. And there was a couple days that I was feeling very, very bad this week. And even so, we were still able to knock out 8 plays. So first of all, let's start with a game that we've been playing for a while now, which is Point Salad, quick little filler game, set collection with various different scoring conditions, right? As the name indicates, Point Salad, the back of the cards each have a different scoring condition. So there's actually 108 different scoring conditions in the game, which I find so neat. Every 2 games will be different. But you either, on your turn, you either draft a scoring card or you draft 2 of the salad items that will help you trigger some of these scoring conditions. So really simple decisions, but lots of diverging paths that a player could take in this game. Really, really neat filler. Possibly my favorite filler. The box happens to be small. I was talking about a small box game. All right. What else did we play? We played San Juan. Oh my goodness. This game is really, really good. People who watch this channel probably already know that I'm a big fan of Race for the Galaxy, and this and Race for the Galaxy kind of came out at the same time. Race for the Galaxy was produced and published later on, but I think they were in development around the same time. This is the card version of Puerto Rico. Great classic game. But this game pretty much puts everything into just that card play. And instead of producing goods to ship them ultimately for victory points, here, goods is just a means. You're really just focusing on building the city of San Juan, which is part of Puerto Rico, but here you're just building the city of San Juan. You're trying to produce the most productive buildings that help you not only score lots of points towards the end of the game, but that help you accumulate special abilities, in particular, the addition of more cards or the ability to pay less to build different buildings. You're trying to just manage all of this. It's a multi-use card mechanism, which I appreciate. Again, Race for the Galaxy. Really, really neat game. If you haven't played it, try it out. We also played a new game for us that we've been playing lately. Carcassonne the Castle. And this might end up being my favorite iteration of Carcassonne. And no surprise that this is one of the few versions of Carcassonne that's not designed by the designer of Carcassonne, Klaus-Jürgen Wrede. This is actually designed by Dr. Reiner Knizia, which people know is one of my favorite designers. If you haven't checked out my video, my top 10 favorite designers, you need to check it out. And Reiner Knizia is somewhere in that list. Spoiler. And I appreciate his designs, and I appreciate what he's done to Carcassonne the Castle, how he's confined the space. You know, Carcassonne is kind of open-ended, and here he's confined the space with a little, a grid, but it's, you know, shaped interestingly. It's supposedly a castle. You're within the castle walls. But you have some options because not only can you place a tile adjacent to whatever the landscape you've created so far is, but you have these additional start spaces around the wall, and those are additional options. So if you don't like the contiguous landscape that has already been made by the players, the 2 players, this is a 2-player only game, if some of those starting spots are still available, those are additional options for you to place your tile. Some of the neat scoring mechanisms include, you know, trying to have the biggest house. A house is one of the features you're trying to grow in this game. And if you have the biggest house at the end of the game, you get to score for all the empty spaces on the board. And there's always going to be at least 16 empty spaces. So that's 16 points. That's a whole lot of points. So the 2 players are really both racing and fighting and competing to try to have that biggest house so that they can have those 16 points at the end of the game. You also have the scoring track, which goes alongside the wall of the castle. And on each of these corners, and there's several corners, there's more than 4 corners, there's these 2 spaces for two of the points. Let's say 10 and 11, and 23 and 24, and 35 and 36. And if you land, when you score, on either one of those 2 scoring spots, there's a tile there, a special tile. And these tiles give you special bonuses throughout the game, different ways of scoring points. In particular, they help you, most of them help you score for incomplete features, because unlike regular Carcassonne, incomplete features do not score you points at the end of the game. So it's so neat because sometimes you might bypass a particular decision that might have given you more points to make a decision that gives you slightly less points, but helps you land exactly on that spot in order to capitalize and draw those tiles that score you extra points at the end of the game. Again, just so many neat features in this 2-player game that so far I appreciate. I think this might end up being my favorite iteration of Carcassonne. We also played, speaking of San Juan, it's Big Brother, the pioneer, the game that was top dog on Board Game Geek rankings for 5 years, the first 5 years of the website's history. Puerto Rico, variable phase order, where players are choosing the different roles that are available to them, and each player gets to carry out the action that that role provides, but the player who chose the role gets one special bonus benefit from it. Really, really neat game. It's all about timing in this game. It's all about seeing what your opponent is able to do, right? Seeing what you're able to do, and choosing the role based on when you think you'll be able to capitalize on it more than your opponent, right? Really, really neat game. I have to admit, this game grows on you, right? I've always felt good about Puerto Rico since the first time I played it, but I have to admit, 2.5 years later or so, since I first started playing it, I appreciate it even more now than I did before. And the last couple plays of this game have been very rich for me. And this is only a 2-player experience. I have played multiplayer only a few times, maybe like 3 times. I wish I could play multiplayer more often. But yeah, this game, rich game, we had a really good time playing it. Also, we played Castles of Burgundy. And this game is just an amazing game. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Castles of Burgundy, we did not play Castles of Burgundy. I had this on the list because this was my one solo game. I apologize. My wife Olivia and I did not play Carcassonne, Castles of Burgundy. I played Castles of Burgundy solo, in particular for a video that I'm uploading later on this week, which is a solo variant of Castles of Burgundy, one of my favorite games of all time, which I have been playing with Lily lately, but it just so happens we didn't play it this week. I played the solo variant. Actually, I played the solo variant a couple of times, so I guess you could say I played this game twice this week, and I made some modifications. It's a fan-made solo variant. When you see the video, I give credit to the user who came up with it. It gives you a way of playing Castles of Burgundy. You know, when you want to scratch that itch by yourself. I will admit, this game, I would say the variant was okay at best. It's adequate, but definitely with Castles of Burgundy, you want to play with someone else. There's just something about that natural, organic tension that you don't need a solo variant to create for this type of, you know, Euro style game. Really, really fun though. It was still enjoyable. It's Another thing about Castle Burgundy, those who played it, there's a lot of upkeep. You're constantly switching out tiles and replacing them. It's helpful to have a second, maybe even third or fourth player help you with that maintenance, help you with that upkeep. So playing by yourself, you do have that. But at the same time, you don't have the pressure of the game feeling longer because the AI's decisions are pretty snappy, pretty quick. There's no thought process to it. It's just automatically triggered based on certain things. So I guess whatever time you save from the AI gives you more time to invest in the cleaning up and the upkeep of this game. So that was my one solo play. Going back, resuming to the games that I played with Lily this week. Very exciting. We played Power Grid, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And Lily likes it too, even though she's frustrated about her failure to beat me more often than not. Even though the second to last time we played, she actually beat me in this game. Last time we played, she did not. The time we played this week, she did not win this game. But what's interesting about the time we played this week is that this week we played with the Robots expansion. And I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with the Robots expansion, but it basically looks like this. A bunch of tiles that you put together to construct a robot. And it has a head, and it has a torso, and it has legs and feet. And each of these tiles has text on it, which indicates what the robot player, this is like a dummy player, an official dummy player, what the robot player will do within the different phases or the different actions of the game of Power Grid. That way their decisions are programmed. So first of all, players just have to follow the program when it's the robot player's turn, carry out their actions, and players can map out their strategies, their tactics, based on what they see the robot player is about to do or will do next, right? And it's really neat because each of the different body parts comes with like 6 or 7 different tiles, which means you can create so many different possible robots that will do different things and have different strengths and weaknesses to their gameplay. Really, really cool. In theory, you could play this game solo with a robot or a couple robots. You could play this game 2 players and create 2 or 3 robots if you want to create a longer, fuller version of the game and tap into some more of the regions on the map. This is such a great expansion, especially for people who have a hard time getting this type of game to the table with multiple players, because most of my multiplayer gaming gets done with my nephews and niece, and I fear that this is the type of game that my nephews in particular may not enjoy. There's a lot of math, a lot of number crunching. I think they might not enjoy the process, but myself and my wife too, deep down inside, find this to be a very rich experience. And since we can't always get a third player, sometimes our friend Andrew joins us, but obviously due to the crisis, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So, you know, he joins us and sometimes we knock out a 3-player game of Power Grid. But this is a cool way of getting those 3-player games down. I do find that Power Grid, while it's an amazing game, the 2-player game, it's tough, especially if one player has proven to be better than the other, which may or may not be the case in this household. So manipulating the situation and all that stuff becomes pretty easy and rote in a 2-player game of Power Grid. So that robot or dummy player or AI does throw a little monkey wrench and makes things interesting. So that was that. And finally, the last game we played this week together, my wife and Lily and I, was a new game for both of us, Ora and Labora by Ube Rosenberg. This game is amazing. It's a monastic themed game where players are running their little monasteries of monks, priors, lay people who are, you know, building stuff and growing crops and expanding their little, you know, monastery spaces with different types of buildings that help them produce goods and resources and money and food. This game is a conglomerate of so many wonderful Uwe designs and tropes. Uwe Rosenberg here, he adds so many neat ideas from Agricola. You know, you have the multitude of workers that you can work with. You have the resource conversion and, you know, manipulation of different buildings from Le Havre. You have the resource dial, which he later on used in Le Havre Inland Port, which is one of my favorite games, even though Lily's not a huge fan of it. You just have so many neat things going on in this game all at the same time with some new wrinkles, some new unique ideas. For example, you have one special worker out of your 3 workers, your prior, who as soon as you build a building, you can activate that building by placing your prior on it. That's like a free action. You don't need to expend another action to do that. That is really cool, really, really neat. Rich game, a little bit longer. Even with some modifications that we made to play for our first time, it's still a little bit longer than Le Havre and Agricola, but such a rich experience. And I truly feel that this game has a good chance of becoming my favorite Ube Rosenberg game. And I've only played it one time, and I love Agricola, and I love Le Havre too, and I love, you know, Agricola, Creatures Big and Small, Le Havre and Port, At the Gates of Loyenne, Mercator. I love so many of Ube Rosenberg's games, and I think this has a great chance of becoming my #1. We'll see with more time. The one weakness I see so far is that, yes, there is no expansion content, as opposed to most of Ube's more popular games do have expansion content. But honestly, when you have so many games like I do, it's not like these games are going to get to the table that often anyhow. I'm always playing new games, different games, varying games. Even though I do like to play my tried and true favorites a good amount of times compared to probably an average gamer. But even so, I think that there's just enough content here because you have double-sided building cards for a French version or French variant of the game, and then for an Irish variant of the game. So I think there's just enough variety to get this game to the table a good amount of times. And again, wonderful experience. We had such a great time playing Aura and Labora. And then finally, I had 2 plays with my nephews via video conferencing on the WhatsApp application. And I'm so thankful to be even able to do that. I'm so thankful for their willingness to do that. And some of the things, you know, are lost, but if you choose the right type of games, you could still have an enjoyable experience remotely. If you haven't watched my top 10 list of board games to play remotely, you need to check that one out, right? If you have friends that you cannot see because of the crisis, these are games that you could play with them through video conference. So we had 2 plays of the same game, one of my favorite games. You know, this week wasn't the greatest week as far as playing tons of games, but man, I played some good ones. I played some of my favorite games this week, and this one doesn't fall behind. Dominion. We played it 2 times, in particular the Seaside expansion. My nephews own a copy, so it's easy for them to just set up their own, you know, the static lineup of cards. I set up my static lineup of cards. Sometimes the confusion, the hard time is that I got to flip over every card that they purchase, and they got to flip over every card I purchase and set them aside just to indicate that these stacks of cards are running out, because that's a very important thing in Dominion, the balance of only having 10 of each of these type of cards in the game, and also the end game trigger that potentially could happen when 3 of these stacks runs out. And in particular, the most important stack of all, the province stack. Oh, we played a vicious game. My nephew David decided to choose all the cards, and he chose to pick the Sea Hag, which is a terrible attack card, because the Sea Hag, like the Witch from the base game Dominion, adds curses. Most of us are not big fans, at least in our family, of the attack cards in Dominion, even though my niece Caitlin enjoys them and is addicted to purchasing them. She needs help. But most of us, we're not big fans of these attack cards because they add a lot of length to the game. Dominion, one of the brilliant things of Dominion is that it gives you such a rich, tight, tense, fulfilling experience in 30 minutes or less. You add these attack cards, it can easily add 15 to 20 minutes to the game. If you add cards like the Sea Hag and the Witch, which add curses to the game, I feel like it could add, you know, half an hour to an hour in this game. We played about an hour and a half of Dominion, which is insane. And I will say this, we still had a good time. Obviously, you know, the time together was fun, and just, you know, Dominion it's a great game. I don't want to play it an hour and a half every time I play it. And I feel like the Seaside expansion mitigates that a little bit, because you feel like you're doing so much more than the regular base Dominion with the Witch. But still, don't want to play that way. There was no defense cards, nothing that we could do to stop that sea hag. So yeah, but we played it twice this week. Once was the 1.5 hour game with the sea hag, and we played it another time this week with I think there was an attack card. We played with the pirate ship, but there was the watchtower was there, so the watchtower mitigated the pirate ship a little bit because it was a defense. And I find that the pirate ship doesn't slow down the game as much, even though that was a little bit of a longer game too. It might have been like a 45-50 minute game of Dominion, but not as bad as the 1.5 hour monstrosity that we just finished playing the last time. And that's it. Those are the games that I played this week. So I had a couple plays with my wife, well, a good chunk of plays with my wife, a few games with myself solo, and some games with my nephews. It's a great, awesome week of playing games. And that's it for today's episode of Monday Metagaming. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, before you go any further, if you haven't already, please click on that button on the lower right-hand corner, somewhere around there. Click on it and subscribe to our channel for more relatable content. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm Harry saying take care, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.